sometimes we have to speak over our life, speak over ourselves. Just one announcement. We will have the Worth Ministry on this coming up Saturday, the 25th at 10 on Zoom. We canceled yesterday, some issues going on, we couldn't log in. But speak over yourself. Today we'll be going into sermon number 3 of our series, Steps to Recovery. Our first one, praise God through confession. The second, life can discourage us, but God will encourage us. And today, praise God in our trials. We'll be going to 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 6. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 6. When you found it, say amen. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 6. Let us pray. Father God, here it is once again to bring a word. Father God, I ask that you sit me down and you rise up within me, Father. Father God, able to listeners to hear and get the word that you want them to receive today, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 6. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now, for a little while, you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. Oh, it's a lady by the name of Ruby, well-known businesswoman in her 50s. She had everything that she ever wished for as a child. In her 20s, Ruby decided to give her life to Christ and to follow Christ. And Ruby was married. She prayed for her husband's salvation. One day as she was praying, she felt a wave of peace come over her. It seemed though as God answered her prayer and showed favor. 2 weeks later, Ruby's husband of 32 years, we know 32 years is a long time, died suddenly from injuries sustained in a car accident. All Ruby's faith seemed in vain. Ruby decided she wanted to blame God for what had happened to her husband. What do you do when your faith does not make sense? What do we do when our faith does not make sense? Roger was hitchhiking home one day. He would never forget the date. It was May the 7th. He had his heavy suitcase, and he was anxious to get out of that Army uniform for once and forever. Flashing his thumb, an oncoming car. He had lost hope, and the car stopped. Black Cadillac, to his surprise, stopped, opened the door. He ran toward the car, opened and tossed his bag in, and thanked the well-dressed man for stopping. The man asked him, "Going home for keeps?" Roger said, "Yes, sir." The driver told him a little bit about himself. He told him that he was going to Chicago. They introduced themselves. The driver said, "I'm Dan," And of course, Roger told him, I'm Roger. They talked a little while, and Roger, being a Christian man, he felt compassion to share the gospel with Dan. So Roger, every time he started, he hesitated. Roger waited till he got about 30 minutes from home because Roger wasn't for sure how the conversation was going to end. So Roger went on to share his story of salvation, told Dan about some things that God had done to him, had helped him out while he was in the war. All of a sudden, the Cadillac pulls over. Roger got real quiet. I guess you can expect that Roger thought he was going to get kicked out the car, or I would have. Instead of Roger getting kicked out of the car, Dan dropped his head, and he received Christ at that time. And he told Roger, this is the greatest thing that had ever happened to me. Not knowing that he was going to be killed in an accident 2 weeks later. I can imagine that I'm not the only one like Ruby that has blamed God for some things. See, Ruby blamed God for her husband dying. I blamed God for some things. And I can imagine that I can stand here and say that I'm not alone. I know you probably blame God for some things. And I also can stand here and say that I'm not the only one that has shared the gospel of salvation with someone. I'm sure you have too. Now, whether or not the person that we shared it with accepted Christ at that time, if they did, that was good. If not, just look at it that you watered the seed. Maybe someone else needed to come back and add to what you said. Even though Ruby was awaiting the day to see her husband walk down the aisle and give his life to Christ, Ruby never seen that. She never got a chance to see that with her own eyes. But however, Roger was able to tell her all about it. And I can imagine that she was happy to hear about it. Now, when we look at 1 Peter chapter 1, it's a powerful letter written to the persecuted Gentile Christians, reminding them that they were chosen by God and had a future hope in Jesus. Peter also offers hope in following Jesus. Peter reminds us that suffering Christians, that we are God's chosen people. Peter reminds us that we have great joy because we presently have a living hope and an everlasting inheritance in the life to come. Have you ever felt like giving up and just wanted to stop living for God? What do you do when you feel like this? Should we blame God for our problems and our suffering? What do we do? Should we be mad and blame God? Or should we rejoice in our trials? That brings us to the central idea for today. Blaming God in our trials is not good, but blessing God in our trials is good. That leads us to our first point today. We have a promise of a great future. Peter tells us why Christians can be joyful. Verse 6 starts out, in all this you greatly rejoice. The word this refers to the first reason for great joy. It relates to what we have seen in verses 3 through 5, which tell us God called us to be born again, to be born to a living hope through the resurrection from the dead. We are reborn above, spiritual, transformed, renewed, and we set apart just for his purpose. We are set apart just for his purpose. In verse 4, God keeps an inheritance for us in heaven that cannot perish, spoil, or fade away. In verse 5, we see that God is holding us for the inheritance. We see, saints, there is an inheritance, and there is an inheritor. The first basics of our joy is that God is keeping both. He is keeping the legacy perfect for us. And he is keeping us in our faith so that we will, in fact, not make shipwrecks of our faith and lose our inheritance. Verse 6, in this you greatly rejoice. In this, whatever circumstances that we find ourselves in, we rejoice. Whether it be death, we rejoice. The loss of a job. If God closed that door, guess what? Another one that's better is going to open up. Christians, joy is almost synonymous with Christian hope. That is why in verse 3, Peter says that we are born again into a living hope. In verses 4 and 5, describes the content of that hope. And into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. This inheritance is kept in heaven for you, who through faith and are shielded by God's power until the coming of salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. In this, you are living, virtual, life-changing hope. In this, you rejoice. Our hope is our joy. Blaming God in our trials is not good, but blessing God in our trials is good. The inheritance is after just waiting for us, imperishable and unchanging, and that we're being kept for it. So that no matter what distress we face, we can look beyond that to the future that is coming. The upsets themselves have a part in getting us ready for that inheritance. We don't look beyond the distress. We don't look beyond the suffering, the trials that we go through. We go through the trials and suffering. We trust God that suffering is necessary. In this, you greatly rejoice. Even though you've been distressed by various trials, but just a little while, it's It's not long, just a little while. What kind of necessity is this? Who is making the distress of our trials necessary? Who is making it necessary? The answer is God. Peter makes it plain that Christian pain, trials, and suffering only happen if God's will, if God wills it. 1 Peter 3:17 tells us it's better if God should will it so, that we suffer for doing what is right than for doing what is wrong. You might suffer for doing what is right. You may not. But the ultimate choice is God. Peter also tells us in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 19, let those also suffer according to the will of God. Entrust their souls to a faithful Creator in doing what is right. Peter is teaching us that God's sovereign will govern all our distresses that happens to us, and therefore we're designed and we will see them through. The ultimate design of evil men or creation of Satan, but it's creation of God. We will see them through. No matter what suffering, we will see it through. There have been some marriages on the verge of breaking up. But guess what? God saw otherwise. There have been people to get fired from jobs. Guess what? God had another plan. I challenge you today, instead of blaming God while in your trials, suffering, you should trust God. Praise God when going through situations. In all this, you greatly rejoice. Praise God for grief. Praise God for our distress as we go through. Praise God for our trials. Praise God for our tests on our jobs, because we can have some powerful tests on the job. Praise God. In all this, you greatly rejoice. In God's design, we go through different suffering. Everyone's suffering, distress, and trials are not the same. There's a variety of ways we can express distress. It's great. God's design is essential that we go through a wide range of trials. That is not just one kind of trial, that's many. I challenge you today, saints, to rejoice in the hope of Christ, despite suffering in our life. Suffering has a promise in purifying our faith and bringing glory, bringing honor, and praise to God. Therefore, in a horrible agony, we can rejoice and have hope. Now, 5 years went by. Roger got married, had a couple of children, and while packing his suitcase for a business trip to Chicago, where he once was hitchhiking to get to Chicago, he ran over a little bitty white business card. And it had Dan's information on it. It had the address of the business. So Roger decided to look it up. Roger stopped by. Roger didn't know what had happened to Dan, so Roger just wanted to stop by, thank Dan again, and maybe go out to lunch with Dan. But needless to say, when Roger walked in the door, he asked the receptionist, "I would like to see Mr. Dan." She told him, she said, "That's impossible, but his wife is here." So a little confused, as the receptionist led him down the hall, he shook Ms. Ruby's hand. He introduced himself. She asked him, "So you knew my husband?" Roger told her, yes. And on May the 7th, he accepted Christ. Ruby was so excited because Ruby's husband never told her that he had accepted Christ. He just let her go on to think that he was still the person that he was. So Ruby had a big smile on her face. And she just thanked Roger. And they had a good conversation. See, saints, Ruby at one time was blaming God for her trials instead of praising God. So we should, instead of blaming God for our trials, praise God. Because blaming God in our trials is not easy, but blessing God in our trials is good. Praise God in our trials. The doors of the church is open. You don't have to come down front. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, just click on belonging, fill out the information, and someone will get in touch with you between 24 and 48 hours. And if you're here, you can see Sister Hampton. She will get the information from you. The doors of the church is open.